I was woken by the cold to an unearthly mist. Troy had switched off the heater and it felt like breathing spiky water. On the passenger seat, there was a crusty brown croissant, a blue plastic cup of steaming liquid and a note. I grabbed the warm mug and noticed it was coffee with a rush of pleasure that I was a tea drinker and Troy at least did not know everything about me. The note said, "Join us when you can bear it." Us. That word woke me instantly and I scanned the wing mirrors, fully aware of who the other person would be. "Good morning," they said as they met my eyes in the mirror. Behind me, beside an adjacent camper van, under an attached canopy, Troy, the self-proclaimed glam rock undertaker, and Eric, the man from the bar, lounged in deck chairs beside a huge mound of pastries on a flimsy camping table from the 70s. Each had a steaming plastic cup in their hands. They're as different from each other as you might imagine, looking like extras for completely different sets. Eric leapt to his feet to establish a third rickety deck chair. I'd have driven away instantly if Troy hadn't seemed so at ease with him. Troy was wearing a thick overcoat that he didn't have the night before. I hoped I might be offered one, then felt cross with myself for wanting anything from them. I jabbed my plastic mug with my croissant and said, "You're not drugging me, are you?" Troy squeaked forward, took a large gulp of my coffee, handed it back, then dashed to the river, a large clutch of pastries. He hurled them into the river one by one with ever more elaborate gestures. "You can't keep her," Eric said, while Troy flung himself around in the distance. "So you said," repeatedly. "You know, Victor, there's a whole realm of life happening right now that you're unaware of." I didn't know how to respond to that. "Right now, somewhere in the world, somebody is changing the tide, don't you think? Right now." "What are you on about?" "This is all happening, Victor, happening around us, and somebody somewhere on the other side of the world is thinking, now what do I do with the body of that old woman who perished in my trumped-up cinema van last night?" I tried not to bristle at trumped-up and took a sip of my coffee. He looked expectant. I seriously doubt that is bloody specific. "But just think, Victor." "What?" "The gloriousness of it all." "Glorious? Nell's dead." "Yes, Victor, all very sad, but it's all rather mystical too, don't you think?" "No. I'm just saying, Victor, that with a morning such as this, with a fine flaky pastry and a good steaming beverage and hearty droplets of mist lining your lungs, it all seems not to matter very much, does it?" "It matters. Depends what you mean by it." He was basking in his cleverness, but saw my annoyance. "Of course it matters, Victor, but it also seems not to. That makes no sense. I'm making rather a pig's ear of this, aren't I?" "Of what?" "A chaffinch!" He twisted his torso and searched the trees for the origin of the song. "Beautiful bird, much underrated." "What does that have to do with anything?" Now the bird's chirping was annoying me. "Absolutely nothing, but all roads lead to Rome, Victor." "I don't want to go to Rome, I want to know what you want." His eyes looked muted, dulled by the mist. It was the first time he had actually seemed to think about what he was going to say, rather than just blurting out unbearable nonsense. "What do you think you know, Victor?" "You killed her." "Yes." He waited for my shock. It was there, I felt it, but I hid it. I mean, I knew it, Troy had said as much. But to hear him say it with just one word, my throat was dry, my hands were unsteady. He waited, I hid it and sipped my coffee, a stalling tactic. He would cave first, he had to. Eric gasped sharply, shifted in his deck chair and leaned back, his murderous fingers clasped over his knees. I breathed again as he settled into his disappointment. Yes, I did that. In a manner of speaking, at least. Nell really did it herself in the end. I would happily have done it for her if she hadn't had the oomph. Well, not happily exactly. Oomph. Oomph. She was an oomfish woman, you know that. But sometimes the oomph we require is a little beyond the oomph we have at our disposal. When that oomph doesn't suffice, well, that's when we come in, you see. Oomph by proxy, if you will. Stop saying oomph. Ha! Yes, that was annoying me too. Oomph is never a comfortable constant cluster, and when it comes in quick succession after a nice long ooh, well, that's rather puckering, isn't it? Certainly for this time of the morning. He took a bite of his croissant and lit a cigar as though trying to punctuate a well-made point. I was about to inform him it was a shitty point, but he gestured for me to wait while he finished his mouthful. For some reason I obeyed. With 2 fingers, he took a Polaroid photograph from the inside of his jacket. It was Troy, Eric and Nell, the 3 of them together. Nell looked as she always had, and it shocked me. In that short space of time since the night before, I felt I'd almost forgotten her. I didn't want to give the photo back, not to murder her. She looked nothing like that now. He gestured for me to keep it. Does she seem unhappy to you? Who took the photograph? Well, that's a curious question, Victor. I think you might rather be interested in when this was taken. In the picture, all three were dressed exactly as they were now, except for Troy's new overcoat. Yesterday, I said. Very good, Victor. It was taken yesterday. Moments after, Nell guzzled back her lethal dose. I'm sure he'd be delighted to hear that she washed it down with a Manhattan cocktail. An excellent one, if I might say so myself. He puffed on his cigar. When? Half an hour before you arrived. Just so reliable, Victor. Never crossed our minds you would miss your cue, and nor did you. You knew she would die with me. And so she did, as per her wish. Why would you do that to me? Why would she? I don't believe you. Can't say she ever properly explained that, Victor. But I must admit, we were somewhat expecting you to simply call the police or an ambulance. And that Nell will be neatly tucked away in a mortuary slab by supper time. Fact is, you've proven a bit of a rogue element to all this, a crumb in my moustache, if you will. You and Troy are both in the photograph. Who held the camera? It bugged me. It was another thing I didn't know and I was tired of not knowing. The point is, Victor, that Nell's ready to go and you also have to let her go. He took a drag on his cigar, extinguished it in a half apricot plucked from a pastry and then washed his hands with rainwater and a napkin. I don't have to do anything you tell me to do. I sounded like a teenager. I felt like one too, judged and powerless at the way of two ridiculous adults. Indeed you do not, Victor, but doing so really is the wise choice. Why? Because, my delightfully obtuse friend, you have a soon-to-be rotting corpse in your home business and livelihood. Troy appeared. You try, Eric said, then stood up and began dismantling the canopy. I felt even more like a child. You keep saying I can't keep her, but I'm not keeping her. I was never keeping her. Eric took the pile of pastries and crammed them to an overflowing public bin. Okay, so what were you doing with her? Troy asked. Police, ambulance, the morgue, they all ran through my mind. I imagined high visibility uniforms dragging her away, an autopsy, awkward questions, prison. I'd kept her way too long now. I burst out of my creaking chair and Eric swooped in to fold it up. Vic, I'm sure you can imagine why keeping a corpse isn't a good idea, Troy said. She didn't do this, she's just covering up what you did. We'll get there, Vic, I promise. But right now, Eric just needs you to work with us. Eric does, and you? Troy grabbed me by the shoulders and pushed me toward the river. It forced my feet into an involuntary plod and I wriggled free. If you don't have any ideas, I have a suggestion, Troy said. What? Now's our adventure. Troy's voice had dropped to a whisper, his cheeks puffed as he smiled, his terracotta hair was the only splash of colour against the dawn. What? Here, I said. Here, look at it, the river. Nell deserves better than some stuffy old morgue or cemetery, doesn't she? Leave her here, you mean? Vic, what else are you going to do with her, mate? Stop calling me Vic! Nothing seemed right, not the usual channels and not what you were suggesting. You can throw the blanket in with her. Throw her in! Yet, did you not get that from what I just said? She'll be found. I'm not going to lie, Victor. It's going to be awkward either way. It's too late for conventional means and we're on damage limitation. But why? Troy raised his voice. Oh, I don't know, Victor. Because the river is right here, because people are going to wake up soon, because you shouldn't have kept her and now we're all screwed, because I want to sleep in a bed and not your truck in the next 24 hours, because like it or not, Nell isn't smelling any sweeter, and because we'll get too many questions, and frankly, I'm not entirely sure you'll stand up under questioning. But you would. Better than you would, yeah. And go off if you want. I can go on if you want. He slumped his spidery limbs to the ground and crossed his legs. You'll get that coat dirty, Troy, Eric said in a father approach that I didn't like. It was going to launch some chaffinch-based nonsense and I couldn't bear whatever was about to escape his lips. Okay, I said, but I can't do it. You'll have to. What else was I going to do with her? Troy was right. I didn't want to be questioned. More than anything, I didn't want to get rid of her alone. I had only a nebulous grasp on that at the time. Looking back, what little protest I put up was for show. Nell's death had been so intangible, it was like she'd simply run dry. She deserved more than to be shelled, burned and buried. And anyway, you can't look enthusiastic about throwing an old woman's body in the river, can you? And so I protested. Feebly. Troy and Eric knew that, of course, better than I did. And they had the manners to hide it. Something to appreciate, I suppose, but it's all rather embarrassing to me now. Anyway, that's what we did, of course. Let me now gift you some choice images of just how badly we went about it.